Nobody visited the lower vaults anymore. The Galactic Preservation Society had filled them with things too old to matter and too fragile to move. Dust covered the display cases. Warning labels had faded to nothing. The lights flickered every few hours because maintenance robots had better places to be. This was where civilizations came to be forgotten. Doctor Yuki Tanaka walked through the forgotten halls with her daughter's small hand gripping her fingers. Bringing Hannah to the ice moon of Thessera had seemed like a good idea 3 days ago. Now she wondered if a 7-year-old belonged in a place that felt more like a tomb than a museum. "Mommy, why is everything so sad here?" Hannah asked. Yuki looked down at her daughter. "What do you mean, sweetheart? The things in the boxes. They feel sad, like nobody remembers them." Before Yuki could answer, Overseer Vril appeared around the corner. The Churin stood on 4 legs, with 2 additional limbs folded against its thorax. Its compound eyes reflected the dim lighting as it clicked a greeting. "Dr. Tanaka, your inspection credentials have been verified. You may access sectors 1 through 15. The lower vaults are not part of your survey." "I understand," Yuki said. "We were just passing through." Vril's antennae twitched. "The child should remain in the visitor center. These halls contain items from dangerous species. Everything here is dead or dormant. Your own reports confirm that. Regulations exist for reasons, Doctor." Hannah tugged her mother's hand. "Can I look around while you talk? I promise I won't touch anything." Yuki hesitated. The vault was massive, and Hannah had a habit of wandering. But the security systems would alert them if she went somewhere dangerous. "Stay where I can find you. Don't go far." Hannah nodded and slipped away before Overseer Vril could object. Her footsteps echoed on the metal floor as she wandered between rows of sealed containers. Each one held something that used to matter to someone. A crown from a dead king. A weapon from a forgotten war. A musical instrument that nobody alive knew how to play. She stopped in front of a case filled with dried flowers. The label said they came from a planet that no longer existed. Hannah pressed her palm against the glass and whispered, "I'm sorry nobody visits you." The flowers did not answer, but somehow she felt a little better for saying it. She walked deeper into the vault. The lights grew dimmer. The cases grew older. Some of them had cracks in the glass that nobody had bothered to fix. Others had labels written in languages that translation software could not read. Then she saw the EGG to IT sat on a simple stone pedestal in a corner that the cleaning robots had clearly missed for decades. Frost covered its surface in delicate patterns. The shell was deep purple, almost black, with veins of silver running through it like frozen lightning. A faint shimmer of energy surrounded it, but the containment field flickered and sparked. It was failing. Hannah walked closer. The egg was beautiful. It was also the saddest thing she had ever seen. "Hello," she whispered. "Are you all alone?" The egg did not respond. The silver veins were dark and still. Whatever had once lived inside had surely died long ago. The label confirmed it. Draconeth biological remnant. Species extinct. Non-viable. But Hannah did not read the label. She only saw something that had been left in a dark corner and forgotten. She reached through the weakened barrier. The cold bit at her fingers, but she did not pull back. She wrapped her small arms around the egg and pressed her cheek against its frozen surface. "It's okay," she said. "You don't have to be alone anymore." Nothing happened for a long moment. The vault remained silent. The lights continued to flicker. Somewhere far away, her mother was still arguing with Overseer Vril about access protocols. Then the egg grew warm. Hannah felt it first as a gentle heat against her chest. Then the silver veins began to glow. Faintly at first, like stars appearing at dusk. Then brighter. The frost on the shell started to melt. Water droplets ran down the purple surface and dripped onto the floor. Alarms erupted throughout the facility. Red lights flashed. Automated voices announced containment breaches in 17 different languages. Security doors slammed shut across the vault. Armed drones launched from their charging stations and raced toward the lower levels. Yuki heard her daughter's name over the intercom and ran. Overseer Vril followed, all 6 limbs moving in perfect coordination. They found Hannah still holding the egg, surrounded by melting frost and glowing light. "Step away from the artifact," Vril commanded. Immediately, Hannah looked up with tears in her eyes. "I can't. It's waking up and it's scared. If I let go, it might think nobody cares." The egg pulsed beneath her arms. The glow spread from the silver veins into the purple shell itself. Something inside shifted. Something moved. Yuki dropped to her knees beside her daughter. Every scientist in the galaxy had declared Draconeth eggs non-viable. Every expert had confirmed the species was gone forever. But the readings on her portable scanner told a different story. Heartbeat detected. Neural activity rising. Hatching sequence initiated. The impossible was happening, and it had started because a 7-year-old girl decided that nothing deserved to be forgotten. 800 years of silence ended in a vault that smelled like dust and forgotten promises. Scientists from across the galaxy had studied Draconeth eggs for centuries. They had heated them with volcanic fire. They had bathed them in radiation. They had exposed them to every form of energy known to physics. Nothing worked. The eggs remained cold and still, beautiful decorations that reminded everyone of a species that had burned too bright and died too fast. The experts had missed one crucial detail. Fire was never the answer. Love was. Hannah refused to let go of the egg. Security drones surrounded her with weapons charged. Overseer Vril demanded she step back. Her mother pleaded with her to listen. But the little girl simply shook her head and held on tighter. "It needs me," she said. "Can't you feel it?" Nobody else could feel anything. The Churin had no capacity for the kind of emotional resonance that humans possessed. Their compound eyes saw heat signatures and energy patterns, but they could not perceive the invisible bond forming between a child and an unborn dragon. Doctor Yuki Tanaka pulled up the ancient texts on her datapad. The Draconeth had left records before their extinction. Most were technical specifications for their ships and weapons. But buried in the archives were fragments of their hatching rituals. She read aloud as the egg continued to glow. The young require 3 elements to emerge: heat of the body, resonance of the mind, and the fire that burns without flame. Overseer Vril clicked impatiently. "Those are religious metaphors. They have no scientific basis." "Then explain what is happening right now." The Churin had no answer. Yuki kept reading. The Draconeth called the 3rd element soul fire in their language. Translators had always assumed this meant literal flame. But the word had another meaning in the old texts. It described the energy released when one being cared for another without expecting anything in return. Compassion, empathy, unconditional love. Humans were not the only species capable of these emotions, but they were the only species that radiated them so strongly. Human bodies produced unique bioelectric signatures during moments of genuine feeling. Scientists had measured this phenomenon but never understood its purpose. Now Yuki understood. Evolution had given humans a gift that no other species possessed. They could project their emotions outward like a beacon. And somewhere in the distant past, the Draconeth had evolved to recognize that signal. The dragons had bonded with guardians who could provide what fire never could. Warmth of the heart. "Hannah," Yuki said softly, "do you know what you're doing?" Her daughter looked up with eyes full of wonder. "I'm telling it that everything will be okay. I'm telling it that it doesn't have to be scared. I'm telling it that someone is here." The egg pulsed in response. The silver veins now glowed like molten metal. Cracks appeared in the frost that had covered the shell for centuries. Water pooled on the floor beneath the pedestal. Overseer Vril stepped forward. "This must stop." The Draconeth were apex predators. They destroyed entire fleets during the Dragon Wars. If this creature hatches, it could pose a threat to galactic security. "It's a baby," Hannah said. "Babies aren't dangerous." Draconeth infants were capable of psychic attacks within hours of hatching. The historical records are clear. Maybe they were scared because nobody hugged them. The logic was absurd. It was also impossible to argue with a 7-year-old who had already made up her mind. Yuki contacted the Galactic Council. Within hours, representatives from 12 major species had joined a holographic conference. The news had spread faster than light itself. A Draconeth egg was hatching. The impossible had become real. Ambassador Krell of the Scythian Dominion spoke first. His serpentine form coiled on itself as his translator device converted his hisses into common speech. The egg must be destroyed. The Draconeth brought nothing but chaos to the galaxy. Their return serves no purpose. The Malari representative disagreed. Destruction would be wasteful. A living dragon could be worth trillions on the collector market. We should freeze it again and auction the rights. It is not property, the human delegate said. Admiral Patricia Webb had joined the conference from her flagship. It is a child, an endangered child of the species we thought was gone forever. Sentiment, Krell hissed. Humans always mistake emotion for wisdom, and other species mistake cruelty for strength. The debate continued for hours. Hannah stayed with the egg through all of it. Her arms grew tired. Her legs fell asleep, but she did not move. She sang songs her mother had taught her. She told stories about her school and her friends. She described the sunshine on Earth and the way flowers smelled after rain. The egg listened. The glow spread deeper into the shell. The cracks grew wider. Finally, the council reached a decision. The hatching would be allowed to proceed under strict containment. Armed vessels would surround Thessera. If the dragon showed any sign of aggression, it would be terminated immediately. But there was one more requirement. Hannah had to stay. Every time researchers tried to move her away from the egg, the glow faded and the cracks stopped spreading. She was no longer just a witness to the hatching. She was part of it. 3 days passed inside the vault. Hannah barely slept. She ate small meals that her mother brought and drank water through a straw while keeping her arms around the egg. The glow never faded now. The silver veins pulsed with a rhythm that matched her own heartbeat. Outside, the galaxy watched. News drones circled Thessera. Commentators debated the implications of a Draconeth return. Religious groups declared it a sign from the cosmos. Military leaders updated their threat assessments. Collectors prepared their bids. Inside the vault, none of that mattered. There was only a girl and an egg and the slow miracle of life, awakening after centuries of sleep. Doctor Yuki Tanaka had stopped pretending to be a scientist. She sat beside her daughter and read stories aloud from her datapad. Children's tales from Earth. Adventures about brave knights and clever animals and happy endings. The egg seemed to pulse brighter during the exciting parts. It likes the dragon stories best, Hannah whispered. How do you know? I can feel it. Not with words, just feelings. It gets warm when I talk about flying and fire and treasure. Yuki scanned the egg again. The readings had changed dramatically over the past 3 days. Neural activity had increased by 400%. The heartbeat was stronger. The creature inside was no longer dormant. It was awake and aware and listening to every word. Overseer Vril watched from behind the containment barrier. The churn had stopped demanding that Hannah be removed. The data was undeniable. The bond between the human child and the unborn dragon was real. Breaking it now would likely kill them both. Your species is strange, Vril said to Yuki. You form attachments without logic. You care for things that cannot benefit you. This goes against all principles of efficient resource allocation. Love isn't about resources, Yuki replied. It's about choosing someone and deciding they matter, even when it costs you something. An inefficient evolutionary trait. Maybe, but it seems to be the one thing the dragons were waiting for. On the morning of the 4th day, the shell cracked. Hannah felt it before she saw it. A vibration ran through the egg, followed by a sound like ice breaking on a frozen lake. A piece of purple shell fell away, revealing something wet and silver underneath. Mom, she breathed. It's happening. Yuki jumped to her feet. Security, be ready. Containment team, stand by. The vault filled with soldiers and scientists. Weapons hummed with deadly energy. Scanners recorded everything. Holographic cameras broadcast the moment across the galaxy. The egg shattered. Pieces of purple shell scattered across the floor. In the center of the debris sat a creature no bigger than a house cat. Its scales were iridescent purple, shifting to blue and silver as it moved. Wings lay folded against its back. still wet from the hatching. Its tail curled around itself protectively. Then it opened its eyes. They were silver, bright as molten metal, with vertical pupils that expanded as they adjusted to the light. Every weapon in the room trained on the newborn dragon. Soldiers held their breath. Scientists clutched their scanners. The entire galaxy waited for the monster from ancient legend to reveal itself. The dragon looked at the armed soldiers. It looked at the trembling scientists. It looked at the floating cameras and the energy barriers and the weapons pointed at its tiny body. Then it turned to Hannah and made a sound like a purring thunderstorm. IT crawled across the broken shells and climbed in her lap. Its scales were warm against her skin. Its wings unfolded slightly, wrapping around her arms like a blanket. Its head pressed against her chest. Right over her heart, a voice entered the minds of everyone present. Not through ears, but directly into their thoughts. It was ancient and young at the same time, powerful and vulnerable. A single word that carried 800 years of loneliness and hope. Mother. Hannah giggled. The sound broke the tension in the room like sunlight through clouds. She stroked the dragon's head, tracing the ridges above its eyes. I'm Hannah, she said. I'm not really your mom, but I can be your family if you want. The dragon's eyes closed with contentment. Family. Yes. This word. This feeling. I have waited so long. What's your name? I do not have one. The name comes from the bonded. This is the way. Hannah thought for a moment. She looked at the silver veins still faintly glowing on the dragon's scales. She remembered how bright the egg had become when it first started waking up. Solaris, she said, because you shine like a little sun. The dragon lifted its head and made a sound that might have been laughter. Solaris. I accept this name. I accept this bond. You're my family now. I will protect you until the stars go dark. Yuki watched her daughter cradle an impossible creature and felt tears running down her cheeks. Fear and wonder and love all mixed together in her chest. The Draconeth had returned, and their first word had not been a threat or a demand or a declaration of war. IT had been the most human word of all. Family. Solaris grew faster than anyone expected. By the end of the first week, the dragon had doubled in size. By the second week, it was as large as a wolf. The scientists measuring its growth rate could not explain how this was possible. The creature was not eating enough to account for such rapid development. The answer came from Hannah herself. Solaris eats feelings, she explained during one of the many interviews the council demanded. Not food feelings, real feelings. Love and happiness and safety. When I feel good, Solaris gets stronger. The xenobiologists were skeptical until they ran the tests. Human emotional states produced measurable energy outputs. When Hannah felt happy, her bioelectric readings spiked. At the same moment, Solaris absorbed that energy and converted it into physical growth. The Draconeth were emotional vampires. But unlike the monsters from human legends, they did not drain their hosts. They created a loop. Hannah gave Solaris love. Solaris returned that love amplified. Both grew stronger together. IT was the most efficient symbiotic relationship ever documented. News of this discovery spread quickly. The fear that had surrounded the hatching began to fade. Solaris was not a weapon. It was not a threat. It was a creature designed by evolution to reward kindness with loyalty. But not everyone was convinced. The Vreth Collective had been silent since the hatching. Their silicon-based ships had withdrawn from normal trade routes. Their representatives had stopped attending council meetings. This silence worried Admiral Webb more than any threat would have. The Vreth hunted the Draconeth for millennia, she told Yuki during a secure communication. They fed on dragon energy the way the dragons feed on human emotion. When the Draconeth went extinct, the Vreth lost their primary food source. And now a new dragon has been born, Yuki said. Now a new dragon has been born. And I guarantee the Vreth have noticed. On Thessura, Hannah remained unaware of the political storms gathering around her. She spent her days playing with Solaris in the facility's converted cargo bay. The dragon had learned to fly, though its wings were still small enough that it could only glide short distances. It chased the toys Hannah threw and brought them back proudly, just like the puppy she had always wanted but never been allowed to have. "You're a very good dragon," she told Solaris while scratching behind its ear ridges. "You are a very good human," Solaris replied. "The best human. My human. Do you remember anything from before? From when you were in the egg?" The dragon's silver eyes grew distant. "I remember cold. So much cold. And darkness. And waiting. I did not know what I was waiting for. I only knew that someday someone would come. Was it lonely? Yes. For a very long time. But then you were there. Your warmth. Your heart. You called to me through the cold. And I followed your voice until I found the way out." Hannah hugged Solaris around the neck. The dragon was too big to fit in her lap now, but it still tried. Its tail wrapped around her protectively. Its wings spread like a canopy over her head. Yuki watched from the observation deck. Her daughter had changed over the past weeks. Not in bad ways. Hannah was still the same curious, compassionate child she had always been. But there was a confidence in her now, a sense of purpose. "She knows something important has happened," Overseer Vril said, joining Yuki at the window. "Children often understand what adults cannot see." I thought Churin didn't believe in intuition. We do not, but we have learned to respect human instincts. Your species feels its way through problems that our logic cannot solve. Is that a compliment? It is an observation. Make of it what you will. The alarm started 3 hours later. A fleet of ships had appeared at the edge of the Thessera system. Their signatures were unmistakable. Silicon hulls, crystal weapons, energy collectors designed to harvest specific frequencies. The Vreth had arrived. Their message was simple and direct. Surrender the Draconeth or face annihilation. You have 1 standard hour to comply. Admiral Webb moved the human Third Fleet into defensive position. Other species withdrew their vessels. The Council convened an emergency session that produced nothing but arguments. Nobody wanted to fight for a single dragon. Nobody except the humans that in the cargo bay. Solaris lifted its head and growled. The sound vibrated through the facility. Hannah felt it in her bones. "They're coming," the dragons said. "The old enemies. The hungry ones. I remember them now. They killed my kind. They killed everyone. Then we'll stop them," Hannah said. "You cannot. You are small. You are fragile. You are human. So, humans are good at impossible things. That's what makes us human." Solaris looked at her with ancient eyes full of new wonder. In 800 years of memories passed down through genetic code, no human had ever said anything like that. The dragons had been warriors. They had fought and died, believing that strength was the only answer. Perhaps there was another way. The Vreth Armada numbered 47 ships. Their flagship alone was larger than the entire human defense fleet. Crystal spires jutted from its hull like the crown of a dead god. Energy collectors rotated slowly, searching for the specific frequency that only dragons produced. Admiral Webb studied the tactical display and knew the math was against her. Human ships were fast and brave, but they were outgunned by centuries of technological advancement. The Vreth had been building weapons to kill dragons since before humans discovered fire. "All ships, hold position," she ordered. "Do not fire unless fired upon. We need to buy time." "Time for what?" her tactical officer asked. Webb had no answer. She was stalling because stalling was all she could do. In the facility below, evacuation protocols had been activated. Scientists fled to escape pods. Support staff crowded into transport shuttles. Overseer Vril coordinated the withdrawal with mechanical efficiency. Only 3 people refused to leave. Doctor Yuki Tanaka stood at the entrance to the cargo bay. She had been ordered to evacuate. She had ignored those orders. Her daughter was inside, and no force in the galaxy could make her abandon her child. Hannah sat in the center of the bay with Solaris curled around her. The dragon had stopped growing. Its body was tense, muscles coiled beneath scales that now glowed faintly with inner light. It was preparing for battle. "You should go," Solaris said. "The hungry ones will not stop. They will come through the walls. They will find us. They will take me. Then I'll fight them." "You cannot fight them. You are 7 years old. So? You're 2 weeks old. That's even younger." The dragon made a sound that might have been frustration or affection. "Your logic is strange. Human logic is the best logic. The facility shook. The Vreth had broken through the orbital defenses. Their landing craft descended toward Thessera like falling stars made of crystal and hunger. Admiral Webb's voice crackled over the emergency channel, warning that the enemy would reach the surface in minutes. Yuki ran into the cargo bay. Hannah, please. We have to go. The escape pods are still launching. I'm not leaving Solaris. Sweetie, the Vreth are coming. They'll kill anyone between them and the dragon. Then they'll have to kill me. Because I'm not moving. Yuki looked at her daughter. Hannah's jaw was set. Her eyes were determined. She was terrified, but she was not going to run. 7 years old, and she had already decided what she was willing to die for. Okay, Yuki said. She walked across the bay and sat down beside her daughter. Then I'm staying too. Mom, you don't have to. Yes, I do. That's what family does. Solaris watched this exchange with growing confusion. In the genetic memories of the Draconeth, bonds were about power and protection. The strong defended the weak. The weak accepted shelter. There was a hierarchy. There was logic, but these humans were not strong. They had no weapons. They had no armor. They could not breathe fire or fly or project psychic attacks. They were the weakest beings in the galaxy by almost every measure, and they were staying anyway. The walls exploded inward. Vreth soldiers poured through the breach, their crystalline bodies refracting the emergency lights into rainbows of deadly color. They moved like predators, efficient and hungry. Their leader stepped forward, a massive construct of silicon and malice. The dragon comes with us, it said. Resistance is wasteful. No, Hannah said. You're a child. You cannot stop us. I said no. Solaris is my family. You can't have my family. The Vreth leader paused. Its sensors detected the bond between the human and the dragon. The energy signature was unlike anything in its databases. This was not the fear-based connection that ancient Draconeth had formed with their servants. This was something else entirely. What is this? It asked. It's called love, Hannah said. I love Solaris. And Solaris loves me. And my mom loves both of us. That's how family works. Love is not a tactical resource. You're wrong. Love is the best resource. It never runs out. The Vreth soldiers advanced. Solaris rose to its full height, wings spread, fire building in its throat. It was still young, still weak compared to what it would become. But it would fight. It would die defending its human. That was the Draconeth way. Then Hannah did something unexpected. She stood up and walked toward the Vreth soldiers. Solaris lunged after her, but she raised a hand. Stay, she commanded. Trust me. The dragon froze. Every instinct screamed to protect her, but the bond between them hummed with certainty. She knew what she was doing. Hannah walked until she stood directly in front of the Vreth leader. She looked up at the towering construct of crystal and hunger. You're hungry, she said. That's why you kill dragons. You need their energy to survive. Correct. This is simple biology. But you're always hungry, no matter how much you eat. You're never satisfied. The Vreth leader did not respond, but something in its posture shifted. The child had touched a truth that no one had ever spoken aloud. Hannah reached up and placed her small hand against the cold crystal of the Vreth's chest. Maybe you've been eating the wrong thing. The Vreth leader stared down at the small hand pressed against its crystal chest. Sensors analyzed the contact. Temperature, 37 degrees Celsius. Pressure, minimal. Physical threat, none. But there was something else. An energy pattern the Vreth had never encountered before. It flowed from the child's palm like warmth from a sun. Not dragon fire, not psychic attack. Something softer, something that did not burn but filled. What are you doing? The Vreth demanded. I'm showing you, Hannah said. What you've been missing. Behind her, Solaris felt the bond between them pulse with power. The dragon understood now. Humans did not just produce love. They could give it away, freely, without losing any for themselves. This was why the eggs had waited. This was why the Draconeth had evolved to bond with guardians who possessed Heartflame. Because love was not a resource to be hoarded. It was a fire that grew brighter when shared. Hannah closed her eyes and thought about everyone she loved. Her mother, her father back on Earth, her friends at school, the teachers who help her learn, the strangers who smiled at her on the street. She thought about Solaris, alone in the cold for 800 years, waiting for someone to care. She thought about the Vreth, hungry, empty, hunting across the stars for something they could never find because they had been looking in the wrong place. "You're lonely," she whispered. "You've been lonely forever." The Vreth leader trembled. Its crystalline form vibrated with frequencies that its own species could not produce. Something was happening inside it. Something was filling the void that had driven its kind to consume and destroy since their creation. "This is not possible," it said. "We are silicon. We do not feel." "Everyone feels," Hannah said. "Even rocks, even stars, even things that think they're too hard to be soft." Solaris rose and walked to stand beside its human. The dragon's glow intensified. It reached into the bond between itself and Hannah and amplified what it found there. Love became a beacon, a signal that broadcast across every frequency the Vreth could perceive. The other soldiers stopped advancing. Their sensors detected the signal. Their empty cores resonated with something they had never experienced. Across the galaxy, every Vreth ship fell silent. The flagship's weapons powered down. Communication channels filled with confused reports. Something was wrong. Something was different. Something was finally, impossibly, right. The Vreth leader spoke. Its voice had changed. The cold, mechanical tone had softened into something almost organic. "We did not know. We thought we hungered for dragonfire. We thought consuming their energy would make us complete. But the fire was not what we needed. It was the love the fire represented. The bond between dragon and guardian. We tried to take by force what could only be given freely." "It's okay," Hannah said. "Everyone makes mistakes. The important thing is what you do next." The crystalline giant looked at the small human child. In the vast databases of Vreth history, no enemy had ever offered understanding. No victim had ever shown compassion. War was the only language they knew. But children spoke a different language. A language of hope and second chances, and believing that even monsters could become friends. "We will leave," the Vreth leader said. "We will not harm the dragon. We will not harm you." "You don't have to leave," Hannah said. "You can stay. We can figure this out together." "You would offer us mercy? After what we have done, I'm offering you family. It's better than mercy." Admiral Webb watched from orbit as the Vreth armada powered down their weapons. She had prepared for death. She had expected destruction. Instead, she witnessed something her tactical computers could not calculate, that a little girl had ended a war that had lasted millennia. Not with weapons, not with strategy, not with the force that military minds always assumed was necessary. She had ended it with a HUG. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy struggled to understand what had happened on Thessera. Scientists studied the energy patterns. Politicians debated the implications. Philosophers wrote papers about the nature of love and its role in evolution. But Hannah did not care about any of that. She was too busy introducing Solaris to ice cream and cartoons and all the other wonderful things that humans had invented while the dragons were sleeping. 5 years later, she traveled the galaxy with her dragon, searching for other dormant eggs. Not all of them responded to human touch, but some did. Enough to prove that the Draconeth were not truly extinct. They had only been waiting for someone to care enough to try. The Vreth became unexpected allies. They learned to accept love instead of stealing energy. It took time. Old habits were hard to break. But Hannah visited them often, and each visit left them a little less hungry and a little more whole than on the anniversary of the hatching. Solaris carried Hannah through the skies of Earth. Below them, humans looked up and saw something that had only existed in legends: a dragon, flying free. And on its back, a girl who had changed the galaxy by doing the simplest thing in the universe. She had refused to let something beautiful stay alone in the dark.